a little bit more into the irrational fractions that make up the universe. And I would like us to concentrate on that because there's a mystery involved. I began with the teachings of the 2001 Space Odyssey of the monkeys with their clubs striking the monolith that appeared in their midst. And that symbol is actually the alpha, and the omega would simply be that right now we have, all of us are not monkeys anymore, but we have clubs, and we are playing the gong instead of the sacred rectangle. We're playing the discus. And so this is a very important thing. How do you play? And the amazing part of it is of course, anybody can play. Even a little child can play. They simply take their clubs and they go and they paka paka, hit the gong like this here, and allow the gong, so to speak, to play them. This is why the gong is so universal. However, hidden within this is also a higher way to play it, meaning that a more intellectual way to play it. So this is what we're teaching with the E, the phi, and the pi. Here's the story. We use both. Those things that are symmetrical, that we can measure and all that, go by a certain proportion. But what about the things we can't measure? Well, in that area of non-measurement, we call it the phi or the pi. They are irrational fractions that go on and on and on and on and on, and they are never the same. So, but within this longevity of how they continue are all the melodies and all the songs that were ever created or will be created, will be found in the irrational fractions that make up our universe. So going back to the beginning, we go back to Russia, to Gurdjieff and Spensky. Check them out. They were the Russian mystics who, of course, used the Enneagram, the number 9. I think everybody by now knows that number 9 is the number of the gong. And so this Enneagram, which means 9, when placed over a gong, let's say a flat tam-tam, orchestra gong perhaps, and we begin to play the gong according to the, let's say, the phi ratio, and we follow that 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 3, 6, 9, whatever the formula might be. What is the difference of doing that and just playing the gong without that? So this is the research that we are doing now. We know that we're developing, we call them Homo sapiens sapiens, that's for the last 200, 300,000 years, are going through a big transition now into the 21st century. The new ascending Dwapara Yuga is in full force, and we're entering the Aquarian age. So that there is a new interpretation, a new transvolution, we call it in yoga, to a higher state, a wider state of consciousness. So this is what we're going through, and it's up to the gong players, because the gong itself enables the higher mind, we call it the Homo luminous spiritualis, to develop from the Homo sapiens sapiens. That's why the gong is here. That's what it's all about. And so the new formulas are really taking the ancient formulas that created the world and to play them on your gong and listen to the world's first solid state computer that was synthesized by humankind, and listen to what it tells you when you begin to put in certain formulas into the gong and play them back. This is the adventure of the consciousness that is upon us right now. So this is, we could say, is the advanced training. I would suggest this: take the Enneagram transparency, place it over your gong, and then play as you usually do. But use your iPhone and take a video of it. So here I am, I'm playing my gong but my video cam is here. Now, I don't have a clue as to where I'm hitting the gong. It's simply channeling, huh? So therefore, taka, taka, taka. Now, I'm curious. I complete that. And now I'm going to play back, and I'm going to watch where I hit the gong. And I'll say, well, ooh, look at this. On the clock face, I'm hitting 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 3, 6, 4, 7. That's the pattern that I'm playing on the gong to make the vak, or the hidden voice of the gong, which is the, remember now, the gong is just not a musical instrument. It is a symbol that was kept hidden for many, many years. Only the great teachers would use it. And then they would have their method, they would teach it to their students. So this is the new development, at least for us, of an ancient way of playing the gong by the numbers. In order to create a certain, if we do the gong yoga beforehand, we do our pranayams, and we get enough oxygen into the blood so that the higher third eye, the Homoluminous Spiritualis point right here is called the full moon center. Not too many people know about it, but as we do the gong baths or the gong experiences, or we in some way apply the gong yoga of breath, mantra, or affirmation to it, then we put it all together. This is called the alchemy of all the great masters that gave all, like Yogi Bhajan, etc., who had their particular kriyas that they make. Well, now the rules have changed now. All of that of the Piscean age, or the cusp age between Pisces and Aquarius, is now complete. We now have to go directly into the Aquarian teachings, which is going to be creating the new mind of the Homoluminous Spiritualis, and the old warlike territorial Homo sapiens becomes obsolete. This is the job of the gong masters around the world today, or we see the sacred sound teachers. So this is what we want to present. We want to understand it, and we want to experience it. Does that help?
Yeah, so some of the questions that I'm getting from the live feed are some questions that we've definitely received before, which is, do you have any pranayamas that you suggest? This is from Thea.
Let's face it, we're all shamans now in this age. We're all of us shamans, okay? And shamans always have medicine bags. And so you have different medicine bags. I have a medicine bag that I wear. It's etheric, of course, which is full of different mantras that I've learned throughout my life. And then I had also another medicine bag here, which is that medicine would be different yoga exercises that have a certain action, reaction, or cause effect. So I have these to choose from. It's part of my imagination, you see. So then I can now synthesize those two together into what we call functional harmony, and that becomes my own, allowing this flow to come through me in an original way. Rather than doing exercises, etc., that are repeated for like that, now if we use the new technology, that we can receive the enlightenment of the flow of consciousness directly without intermediaries. I do not have to do this particular affirmation 108 times. I might do it 3 or 4 times or one time, but that time, that one time within the many times, is the time that I'm looking for. And when I find that time, all of a sudden, there is a change in the DNA and RNA within your consciousness of the human being. And that becomes the new human, the new thought process, not a prolongation of the old, but a complete pratyahara, complete substitution. So this is what's been involving my mind during this period of time. And of course, there's something else that's very important to us as well, which is to take this good virus and spread it around the world so that we can achieve a new level of understanding. This is up to the people now who are teaching Gong around the world and to create their own students to become teachers. This has been the promise of the last 50 years or so. We call the New Gong dispensations. It's now over 50 years ago. So we are the continuation of that transvolution unfolding so that we can actually um, really feel like we've done our job, we've done our Dharma, Gong Dharma.
So what I see as a continual, they say there's an expression that says a call to arms. I always think that whenever you give a teaching, one of the call to mallets that you present to students, teachers, is this proactive um, in intention and imperative to spread the seed of what the gong is and what it can do and its potential and its manifestation. And um, that seems to be something that is reoccurring whenever you have a chance to speak.
So here's the story, Glory. Look, I'm looking now at the subject list of the Gong writings that we have. Um, so we have the Homo Luminous Spiritualis. We must understand what that is so that that energy can flow through us. The Gong codes, including Phi and Pi and E, and all the other ones that the whole list that we can learn to do. It's a new way of transferring the information of called Gong consciousness into the higher awareness of the new third eye of the human being. So we know we have a third eye and the Homo sapiens, the Homo sapiens sapiens, all of us, billions of us, have that, where we focus here at this point. But now that's up here. So it's a shift, we call it. The other thing that is very important to me is the International Gongmaster Alliance, which started many years ago. Its time is coming where we are really connected together so that the teachings that are passed on through all of us are shared uh, around the world. This is so important. Um, the other thing what you're teaching right now, and of course many of us are already signed up for it, which is the mini yoga of the Gong. No longer do we have to do this for Dakata forever in order to reap the results of this, how to cut through time and space. And it's called yogas, mini yogas. And this is called the new Korean Uranus yoga. And of course, you can join that, of course, now it's in progress. So the other thing is to develop the divine mind. Now it's time. The divine mind is the mind of divination. It is the mind of not only the yoga masters, but also of psychics as well. The other one would be Shruti Free Jazz Songs of Revelation. This is so important for us now to see what really spiritual free jazz is, how it stands out from, let's say, free jazz. So all of these things, and I could go on to all of the different areas that here, and also for the children. some years ago, I started a cartoon series called Gong Man Was Here. I took it, okay, from the World War II, you know, when the guy's nose was over the fence and it said Kilroy was here, and all over the world, this Kilroy was approaching everywhere. Well, now we have Gong Man Was Here. And so those are cartoons, quotes, and quatrains. Um, so it's for the youngest gong babies, you see. Remember, a little child can play the gong as good as you can. They're pure channels because you got your your so-called brain in the way. So also all the gong tone immersions of the different types of gong bath experiences that go on and the different ways that we can share this information with other people. So all of this stuff somehow or another has to be passed on into the future. And now, because I'm working on my 87th year, I really feel like it's time, especially since the virus has got us all locked in. So maybe that's the opening that we can now break through to. So online teachings, very important. We're starting that up. We've got how many months? 3 or 4 months worth now to complete teachings so that the people then won't be deprived of any of the knowledge necessary to be complete in your dharmic work. So one of the things would be the solar system Navak flowers. It's coming up, plus the different mudras to incorporate. So it's no longer in the hands of these so-called masters, because now everyone is a master. But in order to be a master, we have to go through the process of mastering something, means we have to learn the guts of it, how it connects together. This is what the teachings are about this year. Plus, we must get the Gong family of the world out there so that we realize who is what we call caretaking different areas and cities of the world, and that we are connected, both the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. That's the job ahead of all of us. And hopefully we will be able to realize a flowering right now. So this is what I've been thinking about.
All right, I'm going to throw in a couple questions that I'm getting. First of
All right.
all, Marty Friedman says, "You look so vital. How do you keep in such wonderful shape? Gong Man forever." So, do you have an answer of how you're keeping your vitality?
Uh, well, you know, first I had my knees replaced, then I had my hips replaced. Then I had the cataracts taken out of my eyes. Now I can see again here and far. So it's like a renewal. We blessed with this scientific stuff. Otherwise, I would be a sorry, grotesque looking little kookaburra who you couldn't communicate with at all. So we are now given this, but why are we given this now? Well, because it's so important, longevity. Most people used to die before they're finished with their teenage years, and then they extended it up to the 20s, the 30s. Now we're extending it up to we can live to 108, no problem, maybe. Good thought. But it's going to extend in the future as we live longer, 144 years, maybe within the next 50 or 100 years, but it's not going to go to 990 years like it was in the beginning. However, at this time of transvolution, people are going to be living longer so that they can pass on the knowledge as grandpas and grandmas to the grandchildren. Uh, and they pass it on to the next generations. There's a need right now for that consciousness.
Okay, and another question, Don. I noticed that you gave credit to science and the medical field and your bionic limbs, but you did not give any credit to your longevity to the gong that inhabits your room wherever you go?
Well, hopefully that the gong of life, which is here in your under your chest, near your thymus gland, and there it's active. You know, as we get older, it shrinks. However, because there has not been research done, there's no way to do anything but speculate that the gong here that we're playing and here right there has a simpatico that will enable you to remain young and your aura strong, so that you can have more time to pass on your wisdom to your grandchildren. That's the most important thing. So, because after a few more years and I'm gone, like everybody else is gone, uh, we're really not gone. What we have from our hearts and our souls and our minds has been passed on, and that it is increasing in its transvolution for the future. This is the concept of the new Aquarian age, sudden enlightenment. So we have to let go of the Piscean takapaka, and if we can, grasp this new way of looking at things, because otherwise, you know, we don't want to become obsolete on this planet, start over. So it's
All right.
hopefully that we'll do that.
Another question was, what were the two Russians that you referred to?
Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, Google them, of course. It's so important. Alice A. Bailey, um, very, very important to us because we get the prophecies through her that the activation of the fourth ray of the sound healer is going to increase on in 2025. This fourth ray, of which we are, is the most resonant part of the rainbow family, or a rainbow. It's a green ray, we say, on white. And so this ray is the most resonant part, and it represents to us this either conflict, which has been going on for all these years because of the primitive mind of the human, or it's going to be a working together in functional harmony. It's that shift from here to here that is taking place and activating. So the next 4 years, it's very important that people get the spirit, get the inspiration, see that since they have the gong, what their destiny is, that they can change fate into uh, destiny for everyone. A lot of people say, "Well, that's woohoo!" You know, they don't really realize to make use of this period of time, whether it's 20, 30, 100 years that they have right now, to make the most of it. So we're trying to activate.
So once again, I keep hearing you call all of our viewers. We've got about 50 people on the Facebook Live, and we have our participants here in Zoom to a call to mallets to get out your gong and share the gong. We have another question from Morgan. You spoke earlier about the third eye shifting.
Yes.
How did that happen? And is it indeed a shift, or it's just an activation of another energy center?
Well, the prefrontal cortex uh, is here. The Sahasrara is here. But there is an overlap thing, which the higher point of our traditional third eye overlaps with the Sahasrara chakra. This is the overlap. It's called the activation of the higher third eye, or the new third eye, or the highest portion of the third eye, the ajna center. Uh, this is the great awakening that happens with people when you play the gong for them. Don't give credit to yourself because it's not really you. And all of the teachers, no matter how big their egos were, they all would bow to the gong because it has a bigger ego than any human being. So this transpersonal guru in the Gong has enabled us to find the teacher within, the one voice within, so that we can transmit knowledge without distortion of the creative process.
Okay, so the distinction here is the third eye is still the third eye. The
Yeah,
crown is the crown, and it's like
yes.
on an acupuncture point where you can have a tiny needle, but the area is pretty large in terms of the effect. So between the pituitary gland, the crown, you're accessing the overlap of those two areas to
Right now,
connect.
of course, you're absolutely right. And right now, when we go into samadhi, what you call it, Gong Samadhi, that here we're looking here, this is called the tunnel here. But when you do the Kundalini yoga, for instance, or with the pranayama, and you pull the Kundalini goddess energy up through the central canal all the way to the top of the head, where do the eyes go? The eyes go directly to the same place that they go in a corpse that just died. The eyes roll back. So it is this point where ritually is unconscious to people. All of us then we go into called the consciousness of consciousness. This is the Gong master point of awareness of awareness. So doing that with the Gong and with yoga and pranayama awakens those new cells because they're being reproduced every day, but they die if you don't feed them. How are they fed? Well, of course, we say in yoga they're fed with ojas. What is ojas? It's transmuted sexual energy. So this is why doing it while you're young gives you more advantage than if you were old. But that doesn't mean that an old person whose hormones have been like with instead of women dying because they can't reproduce anymore, like in the old days, they now live to be older. So, what happens now when there's no more of the hormones being produced in order to reproduce the species? So, at some given point, this it's called transubstantiation, is with transmutation of the sexual energy into ojas, which is all the hormones go into the bloodstream. They go directly to wherever you are stimulating, especially here in the frontal cerebral cortex, which is developing more and more all the time. This is probably the reason why in the past, all over the earth, people elongated their heads so that they would be able to have more um, of the forehead exposed and to develop this higher consciousness. So that's one of the reasons why they had elongated heads. They just weren't all ETs.
So we're still taking questions either through the live stream of Facebook or through our participants chat box. So feel free. I know that there was a hand raise. So if we can just utilize our typing fingers to channel our questions, that would probably be most efficient. One of the questions that I've seen has to do going back with the numbers pi, phi, and e. What is important about those three numbers?
Well, first of all, the gong is a circle. Okay, to find the pi, it's simply the radius. How many radius lengths are there around the circle? That gives you your pi. And then the, which is of course with any circular disc like that, you can do that with. The phi would be living tone reproduction. We stay young through the reproduction of our cells of our body. You know, every so many years, your legs are replaced, the bones, the skin, everything is replaced, recycled. So, in order to keep that young, you have to keep certain hormones active to replenish that area. So this would be the phi. It's called the golden mean. And Super consciousness comes through phi, which is no resistance. So this is the idea. Disease is resistance. So how we say when we're doing we have certain powerful statements we make when people come to the Gong experience. One would be, let the sound go right through you as though you weren't there at all. This is something that we have taught the Gong players to do all over the world. I don't know if they do it. I don't know if they've picked it up as how powerful it is, or maybe they have replaced it with something even more powerful. But if they have, then they need to share this information to upgrade the Gong Master all over the planet. Where did you go?
I didn't mean to go anywhere. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
So right now you just popped over to this idea of the seed that you plant before a gong sound experience,
Yeah.
um, via mantra affirmation. Let the sound go through you as though you weren't there at all. Why does that come up to you as the first, and most potent seed before a gong sound experience?
Well, one thing, the blockage that the cause of disease, of course, is the ahamkar, the sort of like so what you need to do is you need to step out of the way. You become what we call transpersonal. And in so doing, you allow the 24-hour programming process or the rejuvenation process to go on unimpeded by the ego or the illusion of being separate. So we all of them, we have our personality and then we have our essence. What the Gong does is that it allows everybody to relate with their essences. When you do that, of course, the blockages are removed, and there can what we call more of a speeding up, sometimes instantaneous. Healing takes place when you go on for people, and that is because of that factor.
So you just said something very interesting. You said that the gong doesn't heal you. The gong allows the space for you to heal.
Mhm. The innate intelligence of the body takes does this for us 24 hours a day. It never sleeps, except if we put it to sleep, which is that then we die. So, but it keeps going and going and going and going and going. So what we do is we have to make sure that the river runs pure. There's no pollution so that the rejuvenation can take place. However, the pollution that we have created on poor Mother Gaia, as we destroy like a parasite the host that we live in, apparently is passed on to people in their rational mind so that they are no longer able to see through, to perceive essence, to know what right action is to take anymore. What's going to happen to us? We've got to find I'm sorry to say it rests upon the people who are gong carriers today, bowl players, bell players, holistic resonance players of today to reactivate this particular channel that where the negative ego, the ahamkar, blocks. There's no reason why you can't stay young. It's just simply a matter of that you have to bust yourself. We say bust yourself, meaning you have to take away the illusion of the ego rather than uh, being just our personality. Is not our true self.
All right, we have a question from Claudio. Um, would it be possible to gain a better understanding on the relationship between phi and the 207.1 hertz almost Uranus frequency?
Uh, it's interesting because we go through 1 through 9. All of the mathematics that we have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and O. So how that gets put together is amazing. How we call the never-ending irrational fractions. But that is going on at the same time that we build things symmetrically. So we got the asymmetry and the symmetry. So both processes are involved at all times with us. What we want to do is to be able to get out of the what we call the cave of consciousness, the house of mirrors. We want to be able to see and perceive without it going through the filter of our ego. This direct perception is what's going on in the world today, in order so that we have a sharing and caring and working together, Maitreya, functional harmony of the entire planet Gong. That's the goal, that's the emergency, that should be in the minds, hearts of all those people who are following the path of sound healing.
I don't see Claudio if he's still with us on the Zoom. Oh, there he
He's
is.
there.
Is there, if you want to unmute yourself, Claudio, is there a reason why you're asking specifically about the 207.1 hertz frequency versus anything
Well,
else?
that's number 9, of course. We go, what we do is this, is we take 1 through 9. 9 is the phi number, 1.618033989. It is called the golden ratio. It's the line of least resistance, greatest strength, no loss of information, et cetera, and no levitation, the consciousness. So that's the secret number. And we call the gong is number 9. So if you take 9 and you do half steps, like C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, like that, G sharp happens to be the 9th half step. And so this is what we use. And 10, of course, would be the major 6 in music. And the 11th would be the minor 7th, and then the major 7th, and then the octave. So the number 9 only goes up so far. So because that's the way we count. However, we have also 10, 11, and 12 half steps in a full holistic octave, or 13 with holistic. A holistic octave is simply the 12 notes of an octave plus the fundamental note, the first note, appearing at the end like on bookends. That makes it holistic octave. So by simply playing this on the gong, in the beginning, we're just a bunch of monkeys, aren't we? With our clubs waving, kaka, paka, puka, paka, which is beautiful. But however, what if you were following one of the irrational fractions that are hidden in the universe, hidden inside of the gong of life? Then you're going to create a transmission. First of all, the sounds that are coming out are the same note, you say. You know, there is no like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's like gong, 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 gong. However, the music, the inner music we listen to would be the summation tones and the difference tones. In other words, the progeny of living tones begetting in the space, which is our, we could call it our inner space capsule that we're in when we're playing the gong. And here, not only we are playing microtonal music and macrotonal music at the same time. So it's that. This alchemy here, not for sure what the real power is, but we take for granted that 5,000 years ago, these UFO disc-shaped gongs appeared on our planet, and that the music that they play is a building music, space-filling, creative type of music that we're just now sharing around the world. But do you know any gong players that who've been playing who are just linear in their minds? No, they're all triadic. You also understand that the leaders of the world, we call them the head reptiles in charge, do not have that triadic consciousness yet. So what the heck are we going to do about it? Nobody can do anything about it. We're going to go to hell in a handbasket. You have the earth that's going. We're going to rip off the earth like bad viruses and kill everything, and be destroyed ourselves so the earth can start over. But we can't let that happen because we are going into outer space now. The problem, they don't want us to go to outer space because who wants to spread a bad virus into the universe? I mean, this is crazy. And here we are trying to do that, but we have not developed the higher consciousness of these people who hold the power and the money, the spiritual materialistic people. So we are simply bringing to them, maybe it's in a sneaky way, a guerrilla way, but by playing the gong, they will transmute themselves out of the old linear way of parasitic destruction and viral destruction of the home planet, and will begin to not to take this into outer space. Right now, they want to arm us in the outer space so that the viruses can go ahead and keep the destruction going. But what will happen, of course, because we haven't realized our destiny, we will realize our fate. And this planet and all of that will just be turned over like it has many times before. And we want to be able to spread out into the universe, but not as viruses. You see, we want to spread the goodness of life in the universe. So it's up to the gong players.
Not the malignant or malevolent. We have a question from, well, it's a question comment from Mahansuk Singh, which is when we enter into the gong space with an open channel, becoming that conduit with ego facet to the side, then through the channel of the gong healing session, how can we go wrong within the frequency built during the session while in that channel mode?
Well, we joke around. We say you can't go wrong if you play the gong. The idea being is that the guru flows through. The gur, the technique, brings the combination of the dark and the light together in order to find a triadic relationship, which is needed in order to have the higher third eye become active. Not just used for passing out in ecstasy or dying. So the awakening of this point here brings to us a whole new concept of what it's like to be a human being.
The follow-up question is, after a session, should we be resting our bodysuits for a few minutes like in yoga?
Well, yes, of course. And if you can't, well, you should be able to be in samadhi, not just lying on the dead man's pose. You should be able to be in samadhi in life itself, walking, talking. And most of the great teachers look perfectly normal or abnormal, however you want to look at it, but they are inside. There's only one teacher, and that one teacher is always in samadhi. But it's a samadhi that is a fully awakened samadhi. Transferring that person's false identity into that one that is the same within everyone is the task that we have. We are helped by the gong because it does it for us. All we have to do is to enhance it and not stand in the way of it, but allow this to expand our consciousness as well, and then we're what we said, we're cooking.
All right, and then as a follow-up, Claudio's asking, saying, as a quick follow-up, this is extremely interesting. Would it be possible to find a table of correspondences between numbers and chords, 10 equaling the major 6, etc.? And I can answer that, which is after this session, the recording will be placed on the course as well as all of the relevant handouts as PDFs so that you can download them. And Don's request is that for Thursday, that you have those printouts available for you. You've studied them.
Okay, good,
Bring
good.
questions to the table.
Yes, and I'd like if you, all of you now, because you have now advanced in your Gong teachings, that please, please, please uh, play the gong according to these irrational fractions that are on there, and open up and listen with the third ear more closely as to the summation tones and the difference tones that are part of the communication to your innate intelligence.
So can you just mentioned it, we talked about the third eye and the extra third eye point, and now you just talked about the third ear. Can you talk a little bit more about this third ear? Where is the
Well,
third ear?
that's it. The third ear is the same place that you listen to here. The most resonant part here is the whole prefrontal cortex. And in that area here, which is being developed now, uh, this is the area, of course, that when you play the gong, the energy feeds the new synapses so they just don't like woohoo and then die. That they go woohoo and they begin to build a network of new relationships with our thought processes. This is what's going on. And it's 1 o'clock.
It is 1 o'clock, which means we have 30 minutes left. So please send me your questions via the Facebook stream or the chat box. Um, so the research that's, all the rage in the last decade or 5 years has been about this idea that the frontal cortex really only is fully developed by the time you're 25, which is why teenagers do really stupid things. And I just wonder, having three kids, 9, 14, and 19, who have been gonged, and kind of seeing their spiritual or physical evolutions through that experience. If the frontal lobe is fully developed by 25,
Well,
and yet,
okay, I'll answer your question. All right, first of all, forget about the children that you have. They don't want to be like you. They want to be their own thing here. So there's a blockage immediately of passing on information. Usually they'll listen to grandpa and grandma, but they won't listen to mother and father or anybody else. So there has to be a safe transmission usually. So what the gong does is the guru within the gong begins to speak to them by simply awakening those higher centers. And they listen to the one small voice within, which is there's only one gong master in many bodies, unless, of course, that the person is still playing through their ego. Uh, this doesn't really work, but eventually, after a while, there's a dematerialization of the false self. And we all, when you play the gong, I'm playing the gong. When I'm playing the gong, you're playing the gong. So this is a new quantum shift of perspective.
we have a question about, you had stated that there's a new experience you'd like gong players to utilize, which is listening to their favorite music while playing the gong. What is this exercise about?
Well, all right. We've always joked about becoming the fifth Beatle, and that sort of means that's what it means. Is that you can listen to anything on your headphones now because it's very high quality usually, and and you can play along with it. By doing so, of course, you are opening yourself up to more possibilities. For instance, if I put on, I can't get no satisfaction on my headphones, and I'm going punky paka paka puka pa on the gong here. I am actually turning a kind of a one way of looking at it into a higher way of looking at it. If I'm playing the gong and I'm listening to the tone within the tone within the tone within the tone, it's taking me through this tunnel so that I have a direct relation now. So this is what we call cosmic or gong consciousness. So that's what happens automatically. All that we're doing now is becoming aware of our awareness, and we're putting our behind it and focusing so that our energies can be more transmutative rather than just slowly kind of getting there, because you can't get there from here. The only way you can get there from here is through quantum shifting. So the old ways have to be let go.
All right, so in this last 25 minutes, we're going to field any additional questions, and then you can also send them to me via DM or send them to Don Conreaux at Gmail. And again, the handouts related to the hidden gong code, the pi, the phi.
I take it that everybody has a geometer. All right. Is there anybody who doesn't have one? I don't think so. So there. So you have to begin to develop this higher consciousness of the mind. It's not very difficult. If I could do it, anybody can do it. We also have all of these different mudras. This is only some of them. Of how do you choose which mudras you want to do with each of, let's say, a gong kriya that you're doing. Let's say that you're doing an exercise to work on this muscle here, and we're adding a particular variety of pranayams, not just one, taka, forget it. Have several pranayams that you can do. Usually when we do a one of the exercises, we will do it for 30 seconds to a minute and a half. If we apply all of the ingredients necessary to create the alchemy of spontaneous enlightenment or transmutation, when they would in the past, and we all do it still, there's no reason why not to. This is a supplemental shift or quickening. If you have to do it to get the power of a mantra, you have to do it 10,000 times. Why do you have to do it 10,000 times? Well, it's kind of obvious, but at some point, there will be a shift that happens, whether it's the first, second, third, or the 999th time, or whatever you're doing, where all of a sudden there will be a repolarization that takes place. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to narrow it down to where that the enlightenment, spontaneous enlightenment, it's like spontaneous remission, can take place because the formula is right, and it happens. We're looking to that method of healing.
A question we have is, can we extend this experience to the recipients, playing music through speakers while the people receive the gong?
Well, yes, perhaps now, because if you hold your classes right, everybody has the headphones on maybe, or they have on speakers. And what happens is that you can now join in and do it, but not in the way that we're in one space, so that the tonal rays intermingle in the standing wave of the place. Here we're doing it simply as parts that are separated through much time and distance from each other, bringing everything together. So everything changes. So by doing it now, if I put my headphones on and I put on one of my favorite song or one of the whatever, and I go and I play it on the gong itself. This is a yoga called Nada yoga, if you like, or Shabad yoga, if you like, but it's the yoga of the gong. And so you can do that for yourself. And this is a specific focus. You cannot replace the live recording, at least not yet, because we don't have holophonic and holographic television live here where we can actually have our presences brought through space and time to be together in one space. This is a little bit ahead of us in the future, but with what we have now, this is what we can do.
Another question is, you talked about music as somatic tones, but aren't there also in the gong, next to all other, many frequencies? I don't understand. Do you understand the question? I didn't understand. You talked about music in somatic tones, but aren't there also in the gong, next to all other, many frequencies?
Yes. Well, remember, uh, I used to play the gong and the bowl and all of this that we're doing today for a microtonal orchestra. They would invite me in because they deal with microtones, not with our general do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So therefore, all the bowls that we have don't usually go by that, or they don't go by that alone because they have extra extra something in them, which means that they're living tones, which means they can procreate of their own free will together. And we cannot direct this particular thing. We can evoke it, we can allow it to be, but we cannot commandeer it totally with the linear mind. But we can lay the groundwork. It's like setting up an improvisation. You can do one or two things as an actor. You can do it according to the script, yeah, or you can use the script as a launch pad called and to improvise from it. We gong players, sound healers, are masters of improvisation, where the judgment is set aside to allow a greater force to work through us. So uh, this is the way I approach it.
Another question we have is, how does our magnetic field affect the gong?
Well, I don't know. You know, the gong can be used if your magnetic field stinks. I mean, you have a lot of linear opinions and a lot of this and that, and you've fallen into that trap of polarity. What the gong simply does, it dissolves that. It allows you to be able to use some of this great time that you have on earth by perceiving through the higher third eye, uh, through what we call the ear of the soul rather than the ear of the ego.
In anecdotally, we've had people write in where if they haven't done a degree of pranayama or affirmations and mantras, and they approach the gong without necessarily a consciousness about themselves, the gong either doesn't sound the same, or some people have dented their gongs and
Yeah,
without
it's
any kind
difficult is that because as soon as you go there, now you're back into a linear trap again. So how to avoid the linear traps? How to get out of the cave of mirrors, the cave of duality? This has been the problem since we've gotten on this earth. However, the gong allows you to be a both and. So this both and means that the rejuvenation can take place without hindrance. And that experience is the experience we call the immortality experience. So, And believe me, when you leave the earth, after you go through the sojourn and you're gone away, woohoo, you're gone. You're space dust. Forget about it. What you leave behind you is your longevity. And so we all want to leave behind us a good track record if we can. That will be that we didn't just serve ourselves, but we came here to serve humanity as a whole, or in our case, the earth, life as a whole.
This is another question is, do we limit our gongs by choosing a planet gong set frequency?
Well, all of this is there, but yes, because we are scientific. So therefore, we can get a little particular that if you want to open the heart of somebody, you don't need to buy a heart gong. You can if you like. In other words, you don't have to buy a 136.10 gong called the earth gong, the heart gong, to open the heart. What it does, though, is does give you a power that is with the power of your own gong of love to be able to increase that power coming from the heart. So yes, different gongs with different frequencies are for those people who are what we call tone alchemists. And this is what we learn. If you don't want to do it that way, you just want to play on anything, uh, it's the same thing. It's just that it satisfies a certain scientific transvolution that's in the mind of people today. We are all scientists.
Don, a question from Dharam Singh Russell. Do you have any thoughts, Don, on female gongs versus male gongs? Female gongs versus male gongs versus
Well,
non-gender.
well, well, I think that uh, angels are angels, whether you see it as a male or a female angel. It's like looking at a butterfly. Do you know what sex the butterfly is?
No.
So you can get caught up into the polarities if you like, but there is no difference because with a man playing it, the female in the male, which is the soul consciousness, if you're a female player, you have sometimes a male inner voice consciousness, so that there's a balance of the polarities. Uh, so when you reach a certain level of consciousness, that sort of like becomes dust, and you're off into another cleaning out the closets of your mind in a different area.
This is a practical question. People with heart conditions and pacemakers ask me um, the question about the magnetic fields. It, will listening to the gong disrupt their devices?
No, I really don't think so, because uh, it's only happened once in my history where somebody who had a pacemaker died during a gong bath. So don't be worried. It's a very rare incident. But what happened was, of course, is that his battery charge ran out. So he died because of the battery charge running out, not because I was playing terrible.
Well, yeah, there's something to be said about an electric device. I guess it has more to do with
Y-
this idea
uh,
of
There is so much
magnetic
going
connection.
on in the world that we live in. The gong is like has no real negative effect. The gongs have been misused, of course. They have been used by certain black magicians because of the power that they have. But unfortunately, if you have ill intent and you play the gong, the kickback is much more severe than if you were ignorant of it in the first place.
A clarification of that question that we just had, in terms of the male and the female. The clarification is female in the sense of whether it has a magnetic quality or a projective quality.
First of all, it reaches out and embraces you. It embraces you, and then you disappear, or you go dematerialize your so-called separate self into that union. We call it the divine union. The divine union occurs because of what is called the divine consciousness or the divine mind that everybody has. And the mind of divination is the at different times in our creation, the divine mind has been used in different ways, whether it was a fortune teller or whether it was a magician or whether it was somebody channeling the good stuff coming into manifestation. So it empowers you, I think, really, that it, but it disenables the so-called left-hand path. So if somebody of the left-hand path uses the gong in order to achieve their means, they will be duly taken care of by that, because you cannot use this energy. You cannot mismanage. The whole thing right now is to the right management of power.
So the last third piece of that is, for example, a moon gong versus a sun gong.
Well, of course, I don't understand. We got them, they made the different size gongs, but everybody knows that the bigger the gong, the bigger the is. So people tend to start with a small gong and they get bigger and bigger gongs because of the power of being walking through a big gong is much more easier than walking through a small gong, although both work well in different circumstances. So there's only one gong, but many gongs together create sound. However, if you take a moon gong and let's say a Venus gong and play them together, what's the rule? Well, you have to play them at the same amplitude. So their gong magic can come out. Otherwise, if you play them one here, so it's balancing the alchemy when you're playing the gong together. When a lot of gongs are together, well, you cannot differentiate. It's all one gong. So we play both ways. We have an orchestra of gongs, which we use, and then we play it so it becomes one. And then we pick out certain elements and we play these together. Their job as gong masters of ceremony is to blend their gongs together to produce progeny. So those different ways of playing it.
I think we have time for one last question. The question is there no caution for pregnant women or on pregnant women? Do we say to avoid? Is it true for you, in regards to gong playing and pregnant women?
Well, again, it's difficult to answer some of these questions because if you go linear on it, either or, you begin to create fear and trepidation. And anytime you say, don't touch it, well, it starts when we were a kid, when we were told not to touch the stove because we'll burn ourselves, and we burn ourselves. So, but the idea is that we give suggestions to people so that they become aware of listening and playing on a higher level of consciousness so that they will automatically uh, allow themselves to do what is necessary through a demand by the innate consciousness of the receiver, um, bringing this out through you as a channel. So um, if you're really tuned in after a little while of playing, you will not like play for a person realizes the child in the womb hears it, doesn't it? Doesn't it hear it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So listening to the gong itself is like pure resonance. However, if the resonance of the gong disturbs the mother, bringing out some karmic ja 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 in it, now the baby receives this bad vibe from mama. So it's not from the gong itself, it's a reaction of the mother. Now, if you have a gong, female gong master of ceremonies playing for many years, she could probably play at any time she wants to because she is not um, loosening up the bad stuff for release through the system. So there's no problem there. So, but there are precautions to take. If you play too loud, too long, then this is not good. It's not good for the ears, the 26,000 cilia hairs, the inner ear. Uh, so you have to be able to realize that uh, at a certain point, instinctively, intuitionally, inspirationally, you are doing the right thing at the right time in the right way, and no harm can come. Harm comes through ignorance and ego, the territorial mind of the Homo sapien. It does not come from the Homo luminous spiritualis, the one that is the Gong master.
I will say that I was gonged in utero as Don's daughter, and also through my birth, and also pregnant with three very healthy children, gonged through all of their pregnancies as well. So there are definitely, I think the benefits outweigh any risks in terms of what you actually are imbuing that little fetus slash embryo. I think the concern people have really has to do with what's called malpractice. And so it's the same thing with acupuncture, whereby um, it's not recommended to get acupuncture in the first 3 months simply because those first 3 months are the most precarious, so that if something happens, the into the basic default is what did I do to make to miscarry. So you'll look at
And
what did
death,
I do in the
yeah,
last
but
24 hours. So it's really
yeah,
not anything scientific or logical. It's more just to do with, oh, I had a massage and then I miscarried. It must have been because of the massage versus I had a miscarriage because I miscarried
yeah.
and also. So I think that's where
Or else
the
maybe
fear
you
comes in.
walked in downtown L.A. or so a city like that, and all the cacophony of these disastrous sounds of traffic of people will do more harm because it's not a rejuvenating music. So nobody asks the question because they realize that it's ridiculous because they can't go out of the city noise and pollution, and they're 9 month pregnancy is about ready to end. So uh, sometimes the fear of fear itself is more important than the fear. So don't be afraid not to be afraid. Let the sounds go right through you as though you weren't there at all. That little drop of wisdom planted in your gong babs goes a long way, not only for the people that have come to you, but also for yourself.
This is an interesting question. I think this might be our last one. How many tribes have you encountered and played with who do not do Kundalini yoga or were not under Yogi Bhajan or has studied under him? Do you become a conduit differently not knowing Kundalini yoga?
Well, look, uh, the first time that I did Kundalini yoga was, I think I was 13 years old there. And it was the Kundalini Kriya Yoga of Paramahansa Yogananda and Babaji Krishna. That was a Kriya that was to burn out all the residual karma of the blood and also to bring you to a state of consciousness uh, called samadhi. Along came Yogi Bhajan and other teachers, Vivekananda. They all began to teach, and Shivananda, who was born on my birthday, I was born on his birthday, September the 8th. They all brought the Kundalini Yoga at certain times, but there was a particular time when the Theosophical Society back then said it was dangerous to do Kundalini Yoga. You'll go crazy. So they, in their they didn't have full awareness. Partial awareness were right, but the other things that they did were they stepped into their own poo. So some of the things we have to extract from the past, you see, and because of our super awareness and of our awareness today, we are able to extract those things that were polluting the future out of the past and acknowledge and love and take the fruit of what was not polluting into ourselves. So although my first teachers were Alice A. Bailey and the Theosophical Society and Rudolf Steiner and they had certain ideas that were perhaps important for the times that are not important for these new times. So that discrimination, it's up to you to make distinctions between what is valuable and what is passé.
So really what I hear is, besides a call to mallets, is a call to knowledge and to be proactive in when you're talking about some of these incredible channelers and teachers of information, to learn and read and utilize your own self as that alchemical bowl of mixing it all together. So if it's using mini yogs, as a distillation of those kundalini gems, or utilizing other bits and pieces of tools and technologies to create that channel while you're playing the gong, that's really the magic that each of us brings as individuals.
I think it's a real, if not a reclaiming, a claiming of one's own power. Uh, and it isn't a power of, like in a boxing match. It's a power that is like of companionhood, companionship of all yourself and all the millions of beings in the world today. Just find out that they're celebrate our differences as gifts that we can give to each other rather than that which separates us. So we're
Also,
out of time. Are we out of time?
yes, we have reached our 90 minutes.
Let
Once
me, I
again,
did my Shruti though. It's
oh,
Shruti number, yeah, okay. And this is one that's in the book. And I won't do it with the Shruti box. You can just hum. You can be the Shruti box. Hum while I'm listening to this. It's called one. Hello. This is called 100 Flowers. Let there be, and also the power of saying, let there be 100 flowers of peace that bloom in the garden. Let there be 100 hours of peace for every moment of war. Let there be 100 acts of kindness for each instance of hate. Let there be 100 years of love for each minute of violence. Let there be 100 years of peace for each one of war. Let there be 100 flowers of peace that bloom in the garden. So this Shruti is a wonderful Shruti. They're all wonderful um, to do for replanting positive for negative.
All right, fantastic. Well, I thank everybody who joined us via Zoom as well as through the Facebook Live. This recording will be available on YouTube for anyone who wants to revisit this time that we've had together. For those of you who have signed up for the 24 sessions, you will be receiving an invitation to the Teachable platform where the handouts will be downloadable, and the request is to take them, use them, study them, and come on Thursday so that we can dive even deeper into the topics. And once again, if you have any questions, feel free to DM me, Yael Shafir, or Don Conreaux, and
Oh,
we'll answer any more questions. Have a beautiful day. Don, thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Oh, well, I'm blessed by having a daughter like you and so many wonderful Gong friends around the world who are servants of humanity. Thank you.